Marketer of the Day, number 416. Train your brain for better habits, decisions, and results with holistic prosperity and mindset mentor, Joan Sotkin. Hey everyone, and thanks for listening. We're talking right now with Joan Sotkin, and I have a feeling today that the episode that you're about to listen to, you're going to be looking back and you're going to say, dang, I'm glad that I listened to that podcast episode. So make sure you pay very close attention. And Joan helps entrepreneurs and practitioners experience freedom from struggle personally, professionally, and financially. And she is the expert when it comes to understanding how emotions learned in early childhood can affect a person's business and financial outcomes. And thousands have benefited from her groundbreaking book, which is called Build Your Money Muscles, and her other online programs. So Joan's latest highly acclaimed program is called Rewire Your Brain for Prosperity and Financial Freedom. So Joan, glad to be talking to you right now.
Great to be here.
So, all right, so you help all these people, you have all this cool stuff going on. What's on your mind these days?
Well, I like a lot of people, I'm concerned about what's going on in the world and how what I teach can help people find a greater amount of inner peace despite whatever's going on. Does that make sense?
I'm not quite sure. So when you say a greater amount of inner peace, like what does that feel like? What does that look like?
Okay, so a lot of people are very anxious right now. Studies have shown that there's a tremendous amount of anxiety going on, fear, worry. There's so much uncertainty. Our brains are wired so that anytime there's uncertainty, you're going to feel fear. And right now, everything is like getting turned upside down. And so it's important that you recognize when you're under stress, because when you're under stress, you can't make good decisions. And it also leads to physical problems. So the idea is to be able to recognize when you're in a state of stress and how to get yourself back to a more peaceful place, which is healthier, and you'll make better decisions.
Okay, so this is starting to make more sense to me, and I can definitely relate to at times acting out of fear or being overwhelmed or having something unexpected happen or being uncertain about the future, and then being trapped in a box and not really able to look outside of it, and not really being able to see the big picture, and not able to act out of calmness, and just doing completely the wrong things. And so just to make sure that I understand and everyone else understands, so you say that everyone out there has all this fear, worry, uncertainty. So do you have any anything like concrete like that to share? Do you have any clients or stories like that, just to kind of hammer home where a lot of people are at right now?
Well, most people that I talk to are worried about their money. Because I focus on finances. And they're worried about their money. And the fact is, it's never about money. If you're worried about money, then there's probably something else that's bothering you. For example, you're afraid that you're going to run out of resources and you won't be able to do certain things. Or, very often when people are afraid of running out of money, they're really afraid of running out of people, because money comes from people. And so when you find yourself worrying about finances, it's usually about something else. And once you realize that, it can lead to a much greater level of awareness and the ability to make better decisions. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, so you're saying that people, they have this worry, and the biggest worry that it seems to be out there is about money, but then that's not really the root of it. And once we start to break things down, then there are the resources and the people, the things that get us the money that we really should be focused on, not the money itself. Is that on the right track?
Exactly. In other words, I have a client who just wants to make more money. And he doesn't understand why he can't make more money. But he's got millions of dollars. And so in talking to him over time, what came up was, because I know for a fact that more money does not make you happier, because it just brings a lot of new things you have to deal with. And And I learned that he's never been really happy. So he has no idea what to look for other than more money, which I know is not going to make him happier, in order to find happiness. Now, he's got some kind of instinct as to what happy would be. He's very aware that he's not happy. I asked him if he was happy when his wife had children. They had 2 kids. And he said, no, they weren't really wanted. And he just couldn't remember a time when he was happy. That made me really sad, because to think of someone who could never think of a time when he was happy. And so very often people have to learn what they want to feel. If they want to feel satisfied or they want to feel happy, they have to learn how to feel those feelings.
So how do we go about doing that? Because it's like, on one hand, so your client who's never been really happy, that sounds really scary, like to live a whole entire life of just like never being where you want to go. And then when you say, so you need to learn to feel satisfied and happy. And so, I mean, how do we get there, or what does that look like, or how do we even start to make a plan to get there?
One step at a time. Okay, so let's say you have a habit of being disappointed. This is a very common one, where you try different things and they don't work out, and you're disappointed over and over again. Now, I personally believe that habit of disappointment starts early in childhood. So one of the things I help people understand is where that habit started, because the feelings don't just pop out of the air. They start when we're very young, and they're actually habits. Just like your thoughts are habits, your beliefs are habits, and your emotions are habits. And those are the things that lead to the decisions that lead to your life outcomes. So if you have a disappointment habit, you're going to create situations where you're going to be disappointed, because that's your habit. Once you recognize that habit and you say to yourself, well, what would I rather be feeling? So let's say you'd rather be feeling satisfied. So you say to yourself, okay, have I ever felt satisfied? Let me ask you that. If I said to you, what have you ever felt satisfied? What would you say?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so give me one example of a time when you felt satisfied.
So it can't be money, right?
No, 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 something that you accomplished, or something you did out in nature, or anything where you felt satisfied.
I mean, there was a time when I walked half marathon in Las Vegas, and it was one of those things where like I'd never done anything like that, and at the end, like, I was walking most of it and jogging most of it, but at the end I kind of like had enough energy in me to get to a full run, and it felt really good to kind of get past that finish line and get to that milestone, even though it wasn't like a huge like physical feat, like I didn't run the whole entire marathon, but for myself I was like, well, it's a new thing that I myself had done that I hadn't done before, and I finished it.
Okay, and can you remember the feeling?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a feeling you'd like to feel often, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And you don't have to share it with me, but can you think of a time when you were feeling disappointed?
For sure.
Okay. So the next time you feel disappointed, take a deep breath in and remember that time when you got over the finish line. So what you're doing is you're training your brain to feel satisfaction, or whatever that feeling. That was a big feeling. That was a feeling of accomplishment and pride and a whole lot of things, because feelings rarely exist by themselves. And what you're doing is building up neural pathways in your brain so that feeling will, after a time, become automatic no matter what you've accomplished.
Awesome.
Yes. I've been around for a really long time, and I started out very depressed. I was suicidal depressive for 15 years, and I had all sorts of problems. And now I'm at the point where absolutely I have no worries, nothing bothers me. And it's that peaceful place no matter what's going on around me. But I had to train myself to get there. I had to realize that worrying is a waste of time. And every time I found myself worrying, I would take a deep breath and say, what's the worst that could happen? And I found a way out of the worry so that worry was no longer the habit. You know, people on the personal growth path or success path, whatever it is, they tend to think that they have done something wrong or there's something wrong with them. Why do other people are able to do it and I can't? And they compare themselves to other people. And the fact is, you've never done anything wrong and there's nothing wrong with you. You just have habits that were developed in early childhood because of whatever the family circumstances were that are keeping you from feeling and accomplishing what you'd like. So instead of saying, what do I have to do to change myself? You can say to yourself, what do I have to do to change my habits? And once you understand that it's all brain science, that you have these neural pathways in your brain that are what determine your behaviors, and you say, okay, that's not working. What would I rather be doing? And you say, okay, how do I get there without judging yourself in any way? Can you see how that might be helpful?
I can, and I like that a lot. And when you say that, you haven't done anything wrong, you're not broken, you just need to change your habits. Changing my habits seems a lot easier to do than changing everything about me.
Exactly. I mean, I've been on the personal growth path for a long time, and it's like you hear all this talk about negative emotions and negative behaviors, and right then and there, you're judging yourself as wrong. And I don't think there are any negative emotions. Anger is a perfectly normal emotion when you're violated anyway. But when anger is the result of how you were treated as a child and you weren't allowed to express that anger, well, then you've got all this built up anger that's looking for a way to express itself. That's very much what's going on in the United States now, because people have been abused and neglected and alcoholic parents and all these things. And a 2-year-old living in that situation is going to be angry, but would probably get punished if they express the anger. So the idea is to be able to say, okay, what am I feeling? What have I felt it before? When have I felt this before? And what would I rather be feeling? And so you can actually train yourself to feel feelings. There's a place in that protocol where you actually release the feelings, where you say, I'm really angry. That's expressing anger. And when you teach yourself how to express these very normal emotions, because there's nothing wrong with them, then it gets rid of the tension inside of you that you've been carrying for more years than you realize.
Interesting. And I can definitely relate to that, to either holding in the anger or not responding to it correctly, and then seemingly unrelated later making what turned out to be a bad decision, or being angry at someone or something else for no apparent reason, and then you look back in hindsight and say, oh yeah, it's because I didn't actually deal with this thing the way I should have. It caused all this chaos in these other different areas.
Beautifully said. Yes. Once you start saying it's a sin to be angry, it's, you put all this judgment around anger, then you can say, when did I start feeling angry? Now, sometimes that feeling has been with us so long that we don't even recognize it. For example, a 2-year-old and 2 is the age when we start really deciding who we are. That's the age when kids go me, and no, and it's the terrible twos, they call it, because the kid is trying to discover who he is or who she is. And when a parent constantly squelches that child's ability to express itself, the normal reaction is anger. But we aren't taught how to express that. I know in our family, we weren't allowed to express any anger. And so once you realize, when you say to yourself, when did I feel that before? And you kind of close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and you'll remember something from childhood that really pissed you off. And you can say at that moment, oh, that makes me really angry. People think anger expressed has to be loud and violent. No, anger can be, that really doesn't work for me. Once you learn how to be not afraid of your emotions anymore, because everybody's got them, whether you like it or not. And once you learn to express them in the moment, then they're gone. Instead of building up in your system, then they're gone and you can move on. You know how a baby will be crying and screaming and 2 seconds later it's giggling? I mean, we have that ability, but we haven't learned how to let go.
So you've mentioned a few times here about, these things from childhood affect us now. And you've mentioned a few times that it begins at 2 years old, and you're kind of making me think back to, random different events and, all the crap that comes to the surface when you kind of start to, open up that. So 2 years old is where it starts. Is there an upper limit? Is there a certain age range? Oh, go ahead.
Actually, it starts before 2. It starts the day you're born.
Okay, fair enough. But when you're talking about childhood, is there a certain period of time where we should be looking what was with the teenage years? Is that too late, or when is the prime years to be thinking about?
Okay, so your teenage years are really an expression of everything that's come before. When you're born, you have no verbal skills, you have no real cognitive skills, and what you're learning is emotions. You're learning from the energy around you. And if you have angry parents, sad parents, if your mother had postpartum depression, if your mother didn't bond with you properly in the beginning, that's when your emotions started. If you come from a group that has been persecuted in any way, you're bringing all those ancestral feelings with you, and they're part of you. I mean, this seems a little bit too big sometimes, but when people can get to the place, gee, my mother really was depressed a lot, and so I never learned to laugh with her. And you can begin to see how you learned your feelings from the people around you. Now, they're not always uncomfortable feelings. I come from a family where we had no feeling vocabulary whatsoever, but everybody told jokes all the time. My brother became a big-time comedy producer. Everything was funny, but we weren't able to look at the other feelings. So everyone is different. Every combination is different. And so when you say, when did I feel this before? It doesn't matter when you remember it back to. When I was doing this healing work on myself, and I had to figure this all out, I could remember being in the crib. I was trying to figure out why I was having problems with food. And I could remember being in the crib crying for food. When I was brought up, they were teaching parents to feed on schedule, not demand. So if I was hungry at 1 o'clock and I was supposed to eat at 1:30, I would cry for a half hour. And I could actually remember that feeling of deprivation when I wasn't getting fed because my mother, I didn't realize she was waiting for the schedule. Can you see that?
Yeah. So is what you're saying that maybe some of these things that were bad that happened really early on, maybe we can't remember them very well, but we can remember the feelings that we felt at that time?
Exactly. You're really getting this fast.
Cool.
That's terrific. Yes. And because people tend to do these things in their head. Well, I remember when my father was playing baseball with me and they tell the story, but they're not remembering the feeling. And the idea is to get to the point where you allow yourself to feel the feelings. There's nothing dangerous about feelings. They're perfectly natural. And the more you allow yourself to express your feelings, which is an expression of who you are, then the more satisfying your life is going to be.
That sounds like a really great thing, and that sounds like something that all of us want, especially if we've been struggling unnecessarily or if things maybe have been harder than they had to be. And so you have this new book out, this program, this
Course,
Rewire
yeah.
Your Brain thing. Yeah. So is all this sort of stuff, is this taught in your course?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So can you kind of unpack that and tell us what people get when they join this kind of thing?
Okay, so it's a video course, or I did the whole thing in audio too, because I know a lot of people just like to listen to audio. So I put it together in 4 audio things. And what I teach you is the basic theory about how you make your decisions and the habits that go into your decisions, how to recognize the habits, how to release. The technique I use is recognize, release, replace, and repeat. And I explain the brain science so you can understand this is not, there's something wrong with you and you did something wrong. And I always explain over and over again, it's never about money, And so I take you through a process. And along with that, I do this monthly call where people tell me what they're going through, because people do resist change. It's a perfectly natural thing, because your amygdala, that little thing in your brain that's supposed to help you survive, anytime you try to make a major change is going to tell you that it's dangerous and you're going to go back to what you were doing. So I explained that. And then there's another thing called the moving stupids. If you've ever moved from one house to another, you know what the moving stupids are. You don't know where anything is. You lose your wallet, your keys. It's confusing. That's the state of disorientation as your brain is building these new connections. And once you understand that, when you start getting disoriented, you can say to yourself, oh, that's just the moving stupids. And they're going to go away in a while. And so I do that. And then so there's a monthly call where we can discuss things. There's something called the Tips for Prosperous Living, where you get an email every 2 days with helpful hints for living a better life and for feeling better. And it's a lot of the wisdom that I've accumulated over the years, and so it's really designed to help you very gradually move from where you are to where you want to be.
Awesome. And where can people find that course?
If they just go to prosperityplace.com /rewire, they get to the course.
Perfect. prosperityplace.com/rewire to get to that course. And is there any other place you want to send people to after they hear our interview today, or is prosperityplace.com/rewire just the place to be?
No, prosperityplace.com is the place to be. It's got everything I've done. As I said, I've been around for a long time. I have a podcast, the Prosperity Show podcast, and a blog. And I've been online for 22 years. So I've accumulated a little bit of content.
Great, just a little bit, right? Since the mid '90s. So great stuff. So everyone listening, if you feel like you need to make a change, you need better habits, you need to rewire your brain for success, and you say that you're out of money, but you need more money, well, just more money on its own won't solve the problem. You need to dig down a little deeper and solve some of those underlying issues. So the place that you should go is prosperityplace.com to get to the blog and the podcast. And if you're ready to pull that trigger and do what you know you need to do and join that course, the Rewire Your Brain for Prosperity and Financial Freedom course, to get the video, the audio, the email tips, all that fun stuff and more, go to prosperityplace.com/rewire. And you know what, Joan? Like a common theme that I keep hearing today is that maybe if we the things that we feel or the problems that we have, maybe they're just a symptom of something that's maybe 2, 3, 4 layers deeper. And if we just know what the cause is of that effect, or we know what to do to fix that cause, then we no longer have to feel bad about ourselves. We no longer have to kind of have this monkey on our back in whatever form. We can finally be free for some of us for the first time in our lives. So thanks for sharing this great message, and thanks for sharing all your insights from all your experience.
It's my pleasure. I love to share this stuff.
Thanks for listening to today's program. Start from the beginning or view past episodes at marketeroftheday.com/episodes.